Jazzcast Pros.
Are you a high-ranking female leader trying to navigate this realm of professionalism? If you are, then you want to stay tuned because we're going to have a wonderful chat with Dr. Lesli Myers-Small. She graduated with her doctorate almost 20 years ago. She was the superintendent of the Brockport Central School District, the superintendent of the Rochester City School District. She is a TEDx speaker. She is an author of leadership lessons. Grab the book from Amazon. She also has her own consultancy for training and coaching. She has been nominated and received countless awards. She serves on many communities and boards. She's an adjunct professor. She's in a sorority. She's a member of the Rochester, New York chapter of the Lynx. She's an adjunct professor. She has her own podcast called Less is More. And now she is working as the executive director of the Police Accountability Board. What she does have is a very particular set of skills she has acquired over a very long career. One of my favorite quotes from the movie Taken. Yes, one of my favorite quotes. And I just want to welcome you, Dr. Lesli. Welcome. And thank you for being my special guest today.
Thank you. I am so honored and excited to be here.
Welcome to Grace and Grind, the podcast redefining what it means to act like a lady, but think like a boss. I'm your host, Dr. Pamela Brown-Grinion, certified executive coach and internationally credentialed etiquette, manners, and life skills expert with the British School of Excellence. So I just want to jump right in and ask you, what are you doing now? Any new projects on the horizon? What's going on in the world of Dr. Lesli?
So you mentioned your favorite quote, and I love that one from Taken. I can watch Taken over and over again. Taken 1, Taken 2, Taken 3. But one of my favorite quotes reads as this, and I'm slightly modifying it. But one cannot discover new shores unless she has the courage to lose sight of the shore. So I'm one about losing sight of the shore experiences, right? Like taking a risk, taking a chance, and stepping way outside of your comfort zone. And so my newest career endeavor was way outside of my comfort zone. I have been an educator, pre-K through higher ed, for 31 years. So yes, I have developed a very particular set of skills over 31 years. But an opportunity became available in the spring that I just couldn't resist. And that was to serve as the executive director for the Police Accountability Board. The Police Accountability Board was formed by the community, right? It was just such a powerful way to have an agency begin. Many activists in our community were just frankly fed up with the lack of accountability and transparency as it related to law enforcement with the Rochester Police Department. And so legislation was put into place with a 75% voter turnout, a referendum to create our agency. And basically, we are a civilian oversight board that we take in alleged complaints of police misconduct, and we have very talented and skilled staff who intake the alleged complaints, and then we investigate them. They're reviewed multiple times, including myself, and then they go to our board, and then a determination is made whether the alleged misconduct is sustained or if it's unfounded. So it's just really, really humbling and extremely powerful work. But like I said, you can ask me any question about education and I can give you an answer, if not on the spot, pretty quickly, right? But this is, I'm seeped in law and I'm seeped in government. I work for the city of Rochester. And so it's a different wheelhouse. But here's the thing. When you are a leader, right, those skills transfer.
That's right.
So not to say that I don't have things to learn. I don't know everything, but I know a lot. And I do know enough to be able to operate. And then, I've been on the job for a little over 100 days. And I am so proud. And other people are saying, Les, we can see your growth. Like, you really get this. This is becoming a part of your understanding. So that's what I've been doing on the professional side. One of the things you didn't mention Dr. Brown-Grinion, is that I also launched a catering business in May of 2024. And this was something that I said, if I ever had the chance, I would do this. I love to cook. I'm good at cooking, savory, sweet, dinner for two or dinner for 200. And so I finally, again, took that leap, losing sight of the shore. And I filed all my paperwork. I took the courses required, certified by the health department. So I'm a legit caterer, right? And I work out of the commissary. So I love doing that. On the personal side, because my previous role was in education and I had an abrupt departure from that. And so I really struggled with not being an educator. I love kids. I love making policy for kids. I love interacting with kids. I love developing programs and services for kids. And so it was really hard to, step away from that. And so slightly before I stepped away from that, my mother passed away. And that was devastating. And so probably about a year after she passed away, I was asked to write a poem for grieving families, somebody who had just lost a loved one. Denise Williams does a beautiful, beautiful celebration around Thanksgiving where she pays for dinner and she puts on a program for folks that she served, families that she served that past year. So I wrote a poem entitled, It Happened. And I talk about the fact that, I weave losing my mom in there, but I just talk about the fact that sometimes it's unexpected or it's expected, and right, it could be sudden or long term. And I was working with a coach at the time and she said, Lesli, that's a great poem. But you know what? It happened applies to all aspects of life. We just have these unplanned, sometimes unexpected or expected, but it just shakes us to the core. It rocks our world. And she said, I'd love to see you do something with that. And so it was churning inside of me. So I'm working on a project with women of color, not just in Rochester or Monroe County, across the country. And I have submissions that will be coming from Florida and Philadelphia, Rochester, California, all over the place, of It Happened stories to women of color. So, you talk about being a woman of color in leadership. And so I thought that this would just be a powerful, powerful opportunity for women of color who have It Happened stories, right? And I have submissions that talk about almost being raped, right? And losing their virginity to rape. I have professional stories. I have stories of watching a family member or a good friend wither away in front of them. I have a story from a woman who it took grad school to realize, and her doctorate to realize, that she really was smart, but she'd been told she hadn't been. And so I have all of these powerful stories. My best friend from California, I don't know what her story is going to be, but Sheila is biracial. She's Indian and she's white, and she has a powerful It Happened story. So I have women. It's the only qualifier is that you have to be a woman and you have to be a woman of color, right? Mm-hmm. And so we have probably 30 to 50 stories of It Happened to Me stories. And so we're not just going to have a pity party. Like, people are going to talk about the situation, but then they have to talk about what was that thing. It could be God, a higher power, whatever it is that shifted their thinking, and then they were able to persevere and overcome that. So I'm talking about this a lot because I am super excited, and I would love to come back and talk to you about it once it's all done. But I have a really cool way that I think I'm going to be able to launch this that's different, and I cannot wait. So I'm super excited about that.
I'm excited too. And you are certainly a beacon of that, of things happening and then having a way to just be able to navigate it so effortlessly. You make it look so easy. But, I want to talk about your passion for people a little bit. And you've been an advocate for all young and old people for quite a long time. But we also see some deficits in our youth and the next generation, right? So what do we need to do as leaders to inspire the next generation? And how do you think your leadership roles have influenced the way that you approach this cause?
Sure. So my career in education started 31 years ago, I was in grad school at the University of Rochester, and I was a school counselor intern. And I remember saying very vehemently to my internship supervisor that I wanted to be in an urban environment. So I wanted to be an intern in the Rochester City School District. Now, the University of Rochester has changed their stance, but they gave me a very difficult time. They did not want to place me in an urban environment. They wanted me to go out into the suburbs. I'm a Pittsford Mendon graduate. They're like, why don't you go out to Pittsford or Greece? And I said, I want to be in the city. I just feel like I have so much that I can offer, and that I also want to be a role model to young people. And so their compromise was I got to be an intern at School of the Arts, which was amazing, right? It was amazing because I have a music background. But let me tell you, Dr. Brown-Grinion, from those internship days, I am still in touch. So 31, those students were between 14 and 18. You add 31 to that, and I'm still in touch with those students from my internship. Still in touch with students from my first year as a high school counselor, right? And what I did, and it doesn't take a counseling degree or an education degree, it was just about forming relationships with young people, listening to them and being a role model, because they watch you. You can say all the right things, but they watch you like a hawk. My kids watch how my husband and I move and groove, right? And that's really important. That's another topic. The way that we operate in our marriage is an example to them. They see us daily interacting with one another. But young people were watching me, right? And so I had a certain standard, right, that I had to maintain. I couldn't talk about, oh, yeah, I dated this guy and that, that's your choice. That's your choice. I'm not putting that down. But I had to be a role model to them. I talk to them always about Miss, because they don't know your last name. They just call you Miss or Mr. And I was a high school counselor. Hey, what do we do? Which college or university? And they were like, what are you talking about? I'm not going to college. I'm not smart. And I'm like, you absolutely are going to college. So that's the first thing, is being a role model. I think the second thing is we have to hold high expectations for our young people, right? I know it is so difficult, and we're struggling with our 17-year-old right now. But, you can't give up, right? You have to stay focused, and you have to be on them, right? And you have to model for them. I think the other thing is to build that relationship with young people, right? And so if you don't have your own children, you might have siblings or close friends who have children, right? There's Big Brothers and Big Sisters program. There's, different programs like, you could do something through the Urban League or through Ibero or through Boys and Girls Club. But it's so important not for us to just take that visual scan and just say, oh my God, his pants are hanging all the way down, or she's wearing a skirt this long, or she's showing her cleavage. I'm telling you, just making and taking the time. And I have just a quick story I'll share. When I was superintendent, I was walking in a school, and this young lady was saying every 4 and 5 letter word that she knew. And I mean, at the top of her lungs, all of them. And there are lots of adults in the hallway, and I'm just like, are we going to do something? And they're like, that's the superintendent. She was like, I don't give a F, right? Who cares? And so I walked up to her, and she was like, what? And she called me the B word, right? What, B? And I was like, and they're all like, oh my God, this girl is like cursing out the superintendent.
The superintendent.
So I got close and I said, sweetheart, I have a question. She was like, what? Trick, bleepity bleep, bleep, bleep. And I said, who did your braids? She was like, what? I said, they're gorgeous. And, I started wearing braids because of COVID, right? Because you couldn't really get in and do your hair the way you wanted to. And I said, oh my God, how many inches? Like, what is that? Like 36 inches? You got some hair on your head. I said, they are beautiful. I love the color mixture. Totally disarmed her, right? And, I'm having this conversation. I'm not screaming at her. And I leaned in and I said, sweetheart, I said, cursing and going off on folks, that's not what a young lady does, right? Like, that's not cool. I said, and see, some of these folks around here don't want you to be successful. So you are giving them the ammunition that they need to suspend you or put you out of school. I need you to get it together. Now, I
Right.
said that very quietly to her. I said the
Mm-hmm.
braids conversation was real loud, but then
Publicly.
I leaned
Mm-hmm.
in and I said, I need you to go to class. Can you go to class? Tell them that you were with the superintendent. I'm your pass. And she went to class quiet, right? Now, that could have gone could have totally gone sideways, right? I could have said, I'm the superintendent. I can suspend you right now. I
Right.
just built that relationship. And that's what I would ask people. Like I know a lot of people don't go to the mall anymore, but if you're out at a restaurant or you're in a place where there are young people, just make it take the time, give them a compliment them on their braids, their haircut, an outfit, or if you have a pretty smile. Now, and we're not going to make this creepy because I know, about
Right.
pedophiles, right? This isn't
Right.
preying on children, but it's just making and taking the time to pour into children of your own, but children who aren't yours biologically, because I always had the mindset every single child I see in the Rochester City School District, in the suburbs, when I'm out of town, they're my children, and I have responsibility to talk with them.
Yes. And you are so right about it's always showtime when you're in the eye of children. They're going to watch for
Always.
everything that you do. They're going to watch how your hair is. They're going to watch your makeup. They're going to watch your attire.
Everything.
They're going to head to toe. They're going to look at your shoes. They want to see your fit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And are you boss? Do you have it together?
Right.
So yeah, I would agree. I get that all the time from young people when I walk in. They're like, Miss, and I have to tell them real quick, you can call me a lot of things. Miss is not one of them.
Right. It's
I prefer
doctor.
to be called Dr. Pamela. Okay. And just establish it right from the gate. And when I leave home, I make sure that I'm on point, head to toe, because but that's me. That's my own personal declaration of independence to myself. I'm gonna be on point, because I know that especially if I'm going to see youth, that it's showtime. The spotlight is on me, right?
That's right.
Speaking of the spotlight, when the spotlight is on you, how do you balance the pressure of staying true to you, your values, and your personal mission? Like, how do you stay true to that?
That's something that took some time, because I just always, once I started coming into the limelight, and that basically was the superintendency, right? Because when I became superintendent in Brockport, not only was I the first superintendent of color in Brockport, but outside of the Rochester City School District, I was the first superintendent of color in the entire county and the first female superintendent of color in the entire county, including the Rochester City School District. So, I just always was like minding that phrase, my P's and Q's, my pints and quarts, right? I was just always like, oh my gosh. And so I had to learn. And I think, honestly, it really wasn't until I hit my 50s that I start to get really comfortable and just say, you know what? Yes, it is important to go out and to look your best, but I can't go out with makeup and heels when I go to the gym, right?
Right. Absolutely not.
But also, because I am a public figure, I can't go out. And even if I have like just one glass of wine, if I keep that one glass all night, it looks like I'm drinking all night long. So I am very mindful about the way that people perceive me and take me in, but I'm always having conversations about my, what drives me and what my North Star is, right? And so I think for the most part, people, especially when I became superintendent, were like, you're not the typical superintendent. Like, you're actually down to earth.
You're cool.
You're nice.
Cool.
You're cool people. Yeah, students all the time are like, man, you're a cool superintendent. So I just stay true to myself. And here's the thing, you have to be confident in your own skin, right? Too many times, and this is where you can start to have mental health issues and depression issues when you're trying to put on all these different faces and be what people expect you to be. If you have integrity, if you're honest, right? If you're genuine, if you know your craft, those are all things that you can portray with confidence. But I'm not going to step up and try and be someone or something that I'm not. And it took me a while to really get that and to apply that with consistency. But I was at a conference for oversight of law enforcement, and I was having education conversations the whole time, right? Like, here's the issue, right? Let's talk about this. So I'm just true to myself. I'm genuine, right? And I really work to be a person of integrity.
Mm-hmm. And I think that North Star, as you mentioned, I think that has to be inward. Like, you have to know who you are.
Yes.
You have to have that integrity and all that stuff those positive attributes that we need to be successful and to show up as our authentic self. To me, that comes from inward, and a lot of times from what I know for us, from a higher power.
Yes. Yeah. That's the other thing. I don't beat people over the head with my faith, but when I do have an opportunity to gently talk about it or directly, right, I will bring it up. I've been through a lot in my life. I've had lots of obstacles. I had lots of people who told me throughout my lifetime, you won't be a success. You won't, I had someone tell me because my parents broke up, you're going to end up pregnant and alcohol or drug addicted, right, in your teenage years. And, I think the naysayers is what fueled me. I said, you know what, I'm going to fix them. And I'm going to achieve higher than they expect from me. Now, here's the thing, though. It can become very dangerous because imposter syndrome can creep in. And we know that imposter syndrome, right, is when we just don't think we're good enough, or we don't deserve to be superintendent. We don't deserve to be an entrepreneur. We don't deserve and you fill in the blank. So that can certainly happen. Or you can get into perfectionism and I suffered with imposter syndrome and perfectionism, that anytime I made a mistake or had a misstep, I just crumbled and I was like, I'm such a failure. Oh my gosh, I'm so horrible. I'm a horrible superintendent. I'm horrible this. And so you have to be careful, right? But I was raised with the fact, my father said this with tears in his eyes to me, and I had to share this with somebody today. I was probably 5 or 6. I was a single digit. And my dad said, Les, I need you to know this. You are going to have to work 10 times harder than your white male counterparts, right? You're going to have to be smarter. You're going to have to always be on your toes. And he said, the reason why I'm so hard on you, the reason why, I make you listen to classical music and you have to identify who the composer is or what the concerto is, or I'm exposing you to rock and roll and R&B and jazz, is because I am preparing you for a world, sweetheart, that I will never see. And when you're young, you're just like, oh, okay, whatever. It's just more stuff I got to do or more stuff I got to learn. But, in my 55-year-old self says, wow, my dad was so ahead of his time. He was like, I am getting you ready so that you can operate in circles that people who look like us typically don't operate in. And you can I'm not only going to help you level the playing field, baby cakes, I'm going to have you be competitive in that playing field. And I am so grateful for my late father. He's been gone over 20 years now, right? And that he had that acumen to be able, and my dad had his PhD in engineering. He was brilliant. But he had that acumen to be able to say to me that and to give me the skills that I needed. I know how to use, with your etiquette background, I know how to use my knife and my fork. I was at this conference and people, Dr. Brown-Grinion, are grabbing the knife like this and cutting. And I'm like, what are you doing? You don't hold your knife like you're 5. You got to hold your knife. You're delicate and, not knowing to put the napkin down. And I was just incredulous. And I'm so grateful that my dad and my mom taught me etiquette, taught me different musical genres, taught me how to operate in circles, right? Where I can hang with billionaires, right?
Right.
But I also can hang with folks who are hanging out on the corner, right? And everyone in between. And I'm grateful.
And you can code switch on either side, right? It's important.
And that's something that as a person of color, as a Black woman, I had to learn how to do that, right?
And that's a real skill. That's a real skill set. that you have to know how to do that. And it does not matter if it's work or
Right.
church or the
Right.
grocery
Right.
store or at a cocktail hour. You still have to code switch into those different arenas and show up authentically but
Authentically.
appropriately.
Yep. But here's the
Hmm.
thing. What I do, I like to flip the script on the code switching, and I make those who are in the majority right now, I make them have to understand, right? Like I make them understand my language or my background. And they sometimes are
Right.
just like, oh my God. So another quick funny story. When I was superintendent in Brockport, I came into the office. I was with my leadership team. I said, oh my God, I was mad about something. I said, you know what? I'm going to break out some Vaseline and take my earrings off. And all of, my entire leadership team was white. And they were like, Vaseline to
Huh?
take your earrings off. I said, my earrings are getting hot. And so I had to explain, what that meant.
Yeah.
Vaseline, you put it
Yeah.
on so your face doesn't get scratched up and you take your
Right.
earrings out
Right.
so they don't get snatched out if you're going to go into a fight. So a couple of weeks later, I come in. Oh, no, I'm in my office. They're coming in for the meeting. And one by one, they come in and they're all, ha, ha, ha. And then they're like, and I'm like, each one of them were like, oh my God. So we're sitting down at the table and I'm like, what is going on? What is wrong with everybody? And they said, are you going to fight us or fight somebody? Because we see a jar of Vaseline on your desk. So now they knew, right? But it was so funny.
Oh my God.
They were like, are you going to beat us up? Or wait, who are you going to fight? Dr. Myers-Small. And I was like, nobody. It just,
oh my God.
So I needed some. But right, so you get people to understand. I guess that worked too well. They were just like, oh my God, she's going to beat somebody up.
They took it literally, right? But listen, sometimes they do make you want to put your Vaseline on and take your earrings out, right?
Lose my mind up in
right. Up in here. Correct.
Right. Right.
So you've been a high-ranking female leader, throughout most of your adult career.
Yeah.
Right? How do you empower young women and girls? What would you say if you could give 3 lessons or 3 strategies that you hope young women and girls could take away from your leadership journey? What would be 3 things?
You got to know your stuff, the very first thing, right? Like you can't.
Period. Because
some white individuals, right, think that we got to our roles and, the other person who's running against Kamala Harris, right, is saying, right, that all sorts of things. Is she black today, right? Like she just became black because it's popular to do that, all of that, right?
Right.
And so, she's bad. She got a law degree, right? She graduated from an HBCU, all of that.
She's bad to the bone.
People think that you got to the places that you got to, I'll be a little colloquial, right? Because of your skin color, and they have to fill a quota, right? So you have to know your stuff. You have to be an expert and you have to study. And I studied in high school. I studied in college and undergrad. I studied in my first master's, my second master's, my doctorate. Like I studied and I knew my stuff. So you have to, the word says what? Study to show thyself approved, right?
Approved.
So you've gotta know your stuff. If it's in high school, take an AP class, advanced placement, or an honors class, or an international baccalaureate class, or dual credit class. Like study and take the highest coursework possible.
Go beyond the shore. Go beyond the shore.
That's right.
Yeah.
The second thing that I would say to young ladies, young women, is to stretch yourself and put yourself, like that quote, in uncomfortable situations. So every once in a while, don't go sit and hang with your crew. Go sit with other folks that you typically don't. Put yourself in situations where you are in the minority and not the majority, or with folks, like they say, birds of a feather flock together. Put yourself in uncomfortable situations. And why I say that, because it humbles us, right? To always remember what it feels like to be othered, right? To be isolated, to be out. And so I remember going all the way back to high school, and this is horrible. I hate this, but they used to call it the Rebo table for being, not so smart. And I remember there was a girl who sat at the table. These are all my classmates. She didn't have like nerves, so she couldn't feel when she had to go to the bathroom. And so she had to wear a diaper in high school, so they would tease her. There was another one of my classmates. He was born with a birth defect and he only had thumbs and his legs weren't completely developed, so he was in a wheelchair. There was another African-American gentleman, very, very feminine, right, and very flamboyant. So it was, I don't like to use that, but it was a misfit table, right? They didn't fit into mainstream high school. And I remember, I was an athlete, I was in the band, I was friends with everybody in high school. But I remember I went and sat at that table and my friends were like, what are you doing? Why are you sitting over there? And I was like, because I want to. And I remember I was only like 16, 17. I was young. And I just was like, it's important. And they were overjoyed. I didn't realize that I was considered to be popular because I didn't see myself as popular. But I sat with them and tried to break down some walls. And I became friends with some of them. Right. And so that's important. You got to put yourself in uncomfortable or different situations. And I think the third thing, and I know this is something my grandmother told me, and I think it really is important. You're going to laugh. She told me to pursue my faith, to get my education. And then the third one, she had a gleam in your eye. And she said, I want you to stay away from nasty tail boys. And all I can say, because I know not all girls, right, date of the opposite sex. Some are same sex. But just choose your relationships wisely is what my grandmother was telling me. Choose it, right? Whether it's a dating or romantic, or if it's friendship, choose those people wisely, right? So when I was a high school counselor, I had a student. He was the first African-American valedictorian at Wilson Magnet High School. Nicest young man ever, right? And he was smart. Like when he graduated from high school, he was a second semester sophomore at college. That's how smart he was, right? He had Harvard and Princeton, all the Ivy Leagues wanted him. And the girls were like, he's not as cute, Miss Meyer. I said, see, that's who you should be hanging with, right? Because he has earning potential. This is somebody that you want to network. So at your 5-year, your 10-year, you better hang with him. No, Miss Myers. He is so successful right now, right? Mm-hmm. And he's doing and I took, I'm like, see? Even if you didn't date
him, want him, right?
Being friends with him. So your network can impact your net worth, right?
Correct.
Because it's a matter of when I'm in a bind, I can pick up the phone and call a college president and say, listen, I need such and so forth. Or I can call somebody at the state education department. Or I can call, the mayor or this person, Dr. Lyman Torres at Bavona or, Jamie Saunders at United Way or Dr. Sean Hawkins at Urban League, right? So it's a matter of if I need something to get done or if I'm having an issue, I can pick up the phone and I have tons of phone a friends. So choose your phone a friend bank wisely, right? When you're in a bind and you need to pick up the phone and call someone, it's got to be someone who can do something for you, can help you. Not like, girl, I'm sorry that you messed up, So choose your relationships wisely. I really appreciate my grandmother. She says, stay away from nasty tail boys. Choose relationships wisely.
Yes, I love it. I've been reflecting a lot on some of the things that my grandmother told, and I don't know what's been going on with me lately. I feel like I've just been shedding some unneeded skin, and I've been hearing my grandmother in my ear, and I've been feeling my mother, and just been just shedding unneeded, unwanted skin because it's a part of the healing process. So I really appreciate your grandmother saying that. One of the things that my grandmother used to say to me, and I share this with some of my students sometimes, I say, my grandmother used to tell me that a young lady should look good, smell good,
that's right,
be good. And the last one, and I dare to say it, but I got to say it since we're talking about it, and taste good. And I never understood that as a kid, right? But keep yourself clean, keep yourself smelling good. You know what I'm saying? And, you're always on point. But when you're hearing those things as a kid, you don't really understand. But then when you become an adult and something happens in your life and you
Yeah.
hear that little whisper in your ear, and it's like,
Yes.
oh man, that's what Nana meant when she said that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I can so relate.
as we're talking about this, Diane Reeves, remember the song? Silver gray hair, neatly
Neatly
combed in
combed in
place.
place.
There were 4 generations of love on her face. She was so wise, no surprise.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if I could give a fourth, respect and learn from your elders. I used to sit at
Yeah.
my grandmother's feet
Me too,
all the
Les.
time. And even if she told me the same story and it was the 14th time, I acted like I heard it for the very first time. My
Yes.
grandmother was 29 years old and widowed with 10 children. She was so wise. Like, she's the reason why I'm saved. She is the reason why I pursued education to the highest degree. And this is a woman who dropped out of school at 13, got married, had those 10 kids. My grandmother was the help. My grandmother was the help. She was very fair. She was actually Native American. She passed as Black because it was easier. But her legs were, from her knees, her shins were so torn from scrubbing floors clean because my grandmother was the help. And so we often discount older individuals. Like, I miss Dr. Alice Holloway Young, our link sister, right? And may she continue to rest in peace. She was so wise. She would tell stories about growing up in a one-room school where she went with her brothers and sisters. And that's why it was so important for me to get a school named after her in the Rochester City School District, right? But it is so important to, we get annoyed because they're slower or they repeat things. But young people, and I'm still learning from my elders. I sit at elders' feet and I love to hear their stories. So take and make time to talk with folks who are older than you, and don't toss them away.
Yeah. Well, we've got about 1 minute left, and I have one last question that I ask all of my guests. So you've mentioned you had an abrupt departure from the city school district.
Mm-hmm.
You've navigated public scrutiny with such grace and resilience like we haven't seen. How did you maintain your composure and strength during one of the most challenging moments in your professional career? How did you make it look so graceful? And what advice would you give to other women that may be facing public, professional, or personal criticism?
So I think that's a great question. I'll try and keep it quick to the minute. You and I attend the same church. My faith really had to kick in because I had all sorts of crazy thoughts. Like, I'm going to get them. This isn't right. And I just was like, you know what, Lord? I don't understand why I'm getting slayed, but I'm going to trust. And I just would have to just pray and talk to God and try and read the scripture. I had good friends who I could call and just say, I know I'm saying the same thing to you again and again and again, but I just need you to listen to me because I don't think it's fair, or I'm so upset, or I'm hurt, I'm embarrassed. Don't be afraid to get therapy. I went into therapy. And, especially those of us in the Black church, we often think we can pray it away, we can fast it away, or pray and fast it away. Sometimes you need some therapy.
Amen.
And so my faith, friends, and therapy. Mm-hmm.
Great advice. Great advice. Thank you so much for being here,
You're
Dr.
welcome.
Lesli. I have enjoyed our time together.
Yes.
And this was just near and dear to my heart to have you here. I really, truly appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I know you're busy. Yes.
Thank you. This was fun. I could have gone another hour. Easy.
Me too. But unfortunately, we have to end it here. So there you have it, my graceful grinders. You have been listening to the voice of the lovely and talented Dr. Lesli Myers-Small, my dear friend. And I can't wait to get your questions and hear your thoughts about this one. So we'll catch you real soon. And until then, please, please, please always remember to create your totally unique day. on purpose. Ta-ta.